days transformed by prayer.
Hi boys and girls, this is a story that I have from Uncle Arthur's Story Time. This is a story called How Johnny Got Wet. Now Johnny was on his way to school one day and he had been involved in something that no one understood at first, but you'll see in the story just how amazing what Johnny did was. Now, Miss Gibson was Johnny's teacher, and she was sitting at her desk making the attendance for the day. She was marking the names one by one as she called them, that they were here or not here. She called Johnny's name, but there was no answer. She called it again, maybe thinking that he did not hear her. And so she noticed he was not at his desk. Oh, well, he is absent then, I suppose, or late. I wonder where he could be. One little boy said, maybe he's out fishing. I saw him at the creek yesterday evening. Thank you, but I will wait until I know further about where Johnny is, said the teacher. She walked over to the door to close it, and just as she was about to shut the door, up came Johnny. When there was a look of confusion on everyone's face because Johnny was soaking wet. His clothes were completely dripping with water. One student said, "What a mess you are, Johnny. You look ridiculous. Your hair's all messy. You look like you've been swimming." All the students began to laugh, and it was unimaginable to see such a wet boy at the classroom. The teacher looked at him and then sat down at her desk. So he sat down on his chair, and he sat properly waiting for his attendance. And the teacher said, "Johnny, please stand up and tell me why you are late today." "Well," said Johnny, "there was an accident this morning. I was late." But he was interrupted by another little student, a little boy, who cried, "There's a puddle under Johnny's chair." All the girls started giggling and the boys started laughing. Johnny turned bright red. He was embarrassed. Just then there was a knock on the classroom door. The principal was standing there with 2 police officers. Now, the students all of a sudden got really quiet. "The police," they said to one another. What happened? The principal asked the teacher, "Is there a Johnny in this classroom?" "Yes," said Miss Gibson, "there is Johnny in my classroom." "Where is he then?" And all the students pointed to Johnny as though he didn't feel embarrassed already. "Well," the principal said, "we need to talk with him. Because you see, these 2 police officers were on patrol when they saw Johnny jump off a bridge to save a little girl who had fallen into the river that day. So Johnny had jumped in to take care of a little girl who was drowning." The students got really quiet and almost embarrassed that they had teased him for being all wet. The principal said, "Why, son, didn't you go home then and change your clothes before you came to school?" Johnny said, "Well, I was afraid that my parents would be mad at me for getting my good school clothes all wet." They said, "Son, there's nothing wrong with that. What you did was heroic. You did your best to help someone else today." And the classroom burst out into applause and cheers for Johnny. He was the hero of that classroom.
All my life, I've been praying to meet the right man in my life. I was actually adopted from Romania. And when I grew up here in Canada, I always wanted to marry a Romanian to keep the bloodline going, but as well for him to be a pastor. And I also told this to my mother because she also prays a lot. And so she prayed about this every day. And for me, I was praying about it, but then I started to think, I don't know if God can really answer that prayer. How can He can bring a Romanian person that can also be a pastor? Because I didn't meet anyone for the longest time. And so I started taking things into my own hands, and instead of letting God choose for me the right man in my life, I chose myself to date a different kind of person, and it wasn't a good relationship, and I was finally done, and I told God, you know what, I'm done. I throw my hands up in the air. You take control. So one day at the church, we met a whole bunch of colporteurs. And my mother actually met one specific person, and she went up to him and said, "Oh, hi, how are you? Where are you from?" Because there's so many that are from different countries. And he said, "Oh, I'm from Romania." And she's like, "Really?" And then she's like, "What are you studying?" And he says, "I'm studying to be a pastor." And she's like, "Whoa, you have to meet my daughter." And so she came to me and told me, "Vanessa, you would never believe this, but I met the cutest guy ever. He's Romanian and he's studying to be a pastor." I was blown away because I thought, whoa, this is a golden opportunity. But at the same time, I was like, God, you keep leading the way. I'm not going to rush into these things. You open the doors. If you want me to go forward with this person, you will open the way. And I met Liviu, and the rest is history, because now I'm married to him, have 2 wonderful children, and it just amazes me every day that, God has a plan for your life. And even when you think it's impossible that God will answer that prayer, it is possible if you actually have faith and believe in Him and just totally trust Him to take over your life, because He will open so many doors for you that you can't even imagine.
50 days transformed by prayer.
The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Socrates. Ouch, I think Socrates really dug deep there, but I cannot say that I disagree with him. You see, one of the first steps before a fall and failing is having a prideful spirit, believing you have more to teach than you have to be taught. To be honest with you, I have difficulties in leading or being around someone who has great admiration for their own ideas and opinions and consider that they have more to contribute than to learn. A language teacher once said, "Ignorance is bold." The reality is that the more we study a particular subject, the more we realize that we really know little or nothing about it, and that really we have so much more to learn. So no matter who the person is, where they've lived or lives, no matter their age, gender, education level, or economic status, everyone has something that they can teach us, something that will enrich our lives. In the end, it all depends on whether we're open and willing to learn. If we have a teachable, or in other words, humble spirit. Today's study on prayer is going to reflect on those who have a teachable spirit. To be quite honest, since I studied this prayer, I've been doing this. The prayer we will study today is found in Judges 13:8. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, "O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again and teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born." The children of Israel had already been suffering 40 years of oppression by the Philistines, and at this time God decided to intervene to change their situation. He chose a family from the tribe of Dan to be the bearer of liberation. Manoah and his wife had no children, and it was then that the angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and promised that she would become pregnant. The angel of the Lord also gave her clear directions that they should raise him to be a Nazirite. After receiving that visit from the angel of the Lord, she quickly ran to find her husband to tell him what had just happened. You know, one of the aspects I admire about the story is that Manoah at no time doubted that his wife had told him, much less that she'd become pregnant. He did not pray for a sign to confirm that what his wife had experienced, but he prayed that the angel of the Lord would appear again, this time asking that the angel provide more details on how to educate the child. Manoah did not question the direction given by the angel of the Lord, nor was he boastful in saying, I know how to raise a son. I do not need anyone's ideas. Instead, he was humble and pleaded for God to give him more guidance. What an example for us today. When Psalms 25 was written, Manoah had long since passed away. However, I can imagine him singing this promise, show me your ways, O Lord, teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. On you I will wait all the day. Manoah had more than a teachable, humble spirit. He had the desire to do God's will. He was willing to give up control of his life and to allow God to teach him how to live instead. As a family, you must follow in the same way. Have you ever had the courage to pray this prayer, the prayer of humility? Lord, teach me. If not, I think the time has come for you to let God be God in your life. Place yourself before God and ask him to teach you. Remember that prayer is the key in the hand of faith to unlock heaven's storehouse, where are treasured the boundless resources of omnipotence.